Hey, good evening. It's Dr. Roy Shenneman from Tier 1 Coaching and Training. I am joining you tonight. I want to talk about something really, really important in our series on helping people get jobs interviews made easy here with Tier 1 Coaching and Training. So tonight, I would have thought the topic we'd talk about is something we've alluded to in earlier sessions. And I thought tonight we just really expand it a little bit. And that is about the importance of getting to know yourself. Now, this might sound like a silly topic. I mean, absolutely, who doesn't know themselves, right? You get up in the morning, you know your name, you know what's going on, and unless something's going on severely in terms of your mental capacity, you're pretty well aware of what's going on in your life, right? But here's the thing. All of us are guilty of, or maybe a better way, all of us have the capacity to delude ourselves. In some way. Self-deception is something that we do. It's called, psychologists or psychiatrists call this denial. It's something that we are good at. And denial is very useful, to be honest with you. It's something that I believe God gave us with the ability really to be able to handle difficult situations in our lives and to be able to get up in the morning and do it again. Now that's wonderful when taken in that context. Now, here's the problem. When it comes into our everyday life, it can really create a situation where we fail to get to know of ourselves and learn about ourselves and what we want to do with our lives. So here's the thing. You really, really, really need to spend some time and invest the energy necessary to do some research into yourself. Now, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways. One is just a quiet time of meditation, where you spend a little bit of time kind of looking at what's going on around you, analyzing different settings that you're involved with, things you're reading, things you're hearing, things you're talking to your neighbors with, your coworkers, your family members, things like that, and just really getting a feel for how do those things apply to you as an individual. Now, that's certainly one way of doing it, and that's very, very, very powerful. And if you are not in the habit of spending some quiet time, kind of meditating on things that are a little deeper, I would encourage you to do so. I would encourage you to find a really good book, whether it be a scripture or be some other meaningful book that in your life, or some other listening to some teaching, perhaps a college professor, perhaps it's a book on tape, something like that would just allow you and trigger you to really think about something at a deeper level. This is really important because as we think at a deeper level on some things, it applies to everything else in our life as well. It gives us an opportunity to, before you know it, you're starting to analyze problems at a much, much deeper level than you ever have. And that, in and of itself, is a tremendous strength. So I highly recommend that you consider building that into your habits. Researchers know, psychologists know, it takes approximately 21 days to make a habit really happen. So invest that time. Perhaps think about taking the month of February and really seeing if you can invest just a few moments a day. You'd be surprised. You'll start off where initially you might struggle to be in there for 2 minutes and just spending some time, some quiet time. Over time, what you'll find, in my guess, and what I would be willing to bet, is you'll find that over time that time will increase tremendously, maybe to 15, 20 minutes, maybe even longer. Who knows? As you get comfortable with it and as you really, really start to explore the inner workings of who you are. So there's one thing, just spending some time. That's awesome. That's a really good thing to do. Now, the benefits of this self-knowledge are really 6 things that come to mind real quickly. Number one, you're going to find yourself going to be a lot happier. You're going to be a lot happier. Why? Because you're spending time and successfully analyzing problems and coming up with novel solutions that are going to help you and be of use. And if nothing else, you're going to be happier simply because you're going to find yourself to be much more relaxed. And that is awesome. Being relaxed in this kind of a setting can really help you to dig deep and kind of learn about what's going on. Second thing, going right along with kind of feeling a little happier or more relaxed, you're going to have much less inner conflict. I don't know about you, but there are times that things happen and I find myself questioning myself. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do something else? Weren't you thinking about this? What's going on? Why aren't you doing something a certain way? Or the ever-present, you could have done something different, and by now you'd be way on down the road than where you are right now. There's those doubts, or sometimes just those opportunities where you find yourself second guessing prior decisions. This is a killer. It is something that will really, really wreak havoc on your life and on your future. So I would encourage you not to do it. By spending time getting to know yourself, you learn to accept yourself for who you are, how you're gifted, what you're thinking about, what really makes you go and makes you just excited to get out there and impact your society and in your life and your family and your friends and everybody else. So when you do that, it becomes much less conflictual, much calmer, and you're not beating yourself up over a decision you made or didn't make, an action you did or didn't do in the past. Instead, you're looking forward. You're being comfortable where you are, but you're looking forward to where you want to go. So that's the second thing. Third thing, because you're thinking deeply about subjects, particularly about yourself and what's going on and what really turns your crank and makes you really want to go, you're going to find yourself making better decisions. Decisions that aren't made based on emotion. Decisions that are actually well thought out. Even decisions that may countermand decisions you made previously. But now you feel much more calm because you understand you've spent the time necessary. You've done the work internally necessary to allow yourself to be successful. So you're going to make better decisions. It's just the way it works. It works for all of us that way. Along the lines, because you're taking the time to get to know yourself, you'll find that you'll experience yourself better self-control. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get caught up in really needing to do something. And sometimes I can even be just a little bit impulsive. And that can drive you crazy if you do that, if you're too impulsive. So here's the thing. Being able to have self-control is all about knowing who you are and being aware of who you are. In fact, Daniel Goleman, author of the book Emotional Intelligence, and really one of the preeminent writers in that field, has said that a key aspect of emotional intelligence is the ability to know yourself and the ability to understand how you interact with everyone around you. And that is all about being aware of yourself and aware of others, and aware particularly of the needs of others. I can tell you that as you become more and more comfortable with yourself and more accepting of who you are and the unique ways that you are gifted, the better off you're going to be. So this is all about self-control, and you're going to do it. It's going to make that in and of itself is worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. Fifth, you're going to find yourself better able to resist social pressure. Now, we talk about teenagers often being, dealing with peer pressure, and we talk about, the peer pressure to drink, or the peer pressure to get involved sexually with somebody, or the peer pressure to cheat on a test, or whatever the situation might be that a kid might go through, a teenager could go through. But even as adults, sometimes you can feel that social pressure with coworkers, with family members, with friends or neighbors down the street. You can just feel it, of things that you feel like you should be doing. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you get to know yourself and really understand who you are and what your values are and what's really deep within you, you'll better be able to resist that social pressure and to be able to make decisions and to do things because you want to do it, not because you feel manipulated to do it, or to say no. And that's a very difficult word. Many people in our society today struggle with the ability to say no. To say no even to things that they absolutely are sure are not a good idea, either for themselves or somebody else. But yet they'll struggle to go with it, that social pressure. So this is all about figuring out a way to resist that. That comes with some deep, just over time, building that discipline within yourself to kind of know who you are and what you do. Lastly, the last benefit, the sixth one that really comes to mind right now, is as we get to know ourselves and we become much more adept at understanding ourselves and really just controlling ourselves and really controlling our impacts with others and making it a much more positive experience for everybody, you become much more understanding of others. Because after all, if you struggle with stuff, guess what? The person next to you probably does as well. And even though they may dress up every day, put makeup on, take a shower, do everything they need to do to go to work, I guarantee you they have very similar struggles as you do. It's called being a human being. It's not worth beating ourselves up about. It's just understanding that about ourselves, and it's being able to be respectful and be understanding of others and treating them in a way that is full of respect and full of empathy along the way. Empathy is one of those skills that can be developed. Yeah, so if you find yourself you're not currently not a very empathetic person, over time you can develop that skill. It's like a muscle. It's like anything else. As you work it out, you get stronger and it gets better, and much more, much less of an effort, and much more of just a part of who you are and accepting that. So really, so here's the 6 benefits we talked about. You're going to feel a lot happier. As you know yourself and you get better, you're going to have less inner conflict. You're going to be able to make better decisions because you're calmer, because you've actually thought deeply about a particular subject. You're going to find yourself with increased self-control, the ability to actually make decisions that are sound, decisions that are well thought out and not impulsive, and not, at least not as impulsive. You're going to be better able to resist social pressure and to let your yes be yes and your no be no. And you make a decision because this is who you are and what you want and what you need, as opposed to just going along with the flow in a direction that perhaps you're either not enthused about or you just downright think is not a good idea overall. And lastly, we talked about the benefits of getting to know yourself at this deep level is just being much more understanding of others around you, understanding that they struggle with things just like you do in a very real sense. So it's really, really important that these are the benefits that we can focus on. So you might say, well, how do I do that? Well, here's some things. Let me give you some things that just to think about as you're contemplating this and as you're building this disciplines within your life. Number 1, focusing on your values. What is it about you that really makes you, that drives you? What is it most important to you? If everything else was taken out of your life, what is the one thing or the group of things that you would hold on to most dearly within your heart and within your soul? Just things that just really are deep, deep held values. What are they? What are those values? And getting to know them. Secondly, what interests you? What do you like to do? Are there activities that you just get really excited about? And you would do, for free, or you'd be willing to even pay to do them because you just enjoy it so much. One of the most awesome things you can ever experience in the world of work is finding a job that has aspects of it that you just enjoy and that you would actually do for free, or maybe even pay somebody to do it. And instead, they're paying you to come to work every day and to do whatever it is that we're talking about here that you just really love because it matches your values and it matches your interests and things that are just really cool. Next thing is, what did you learn about your own temperament? Are you the kind of person who gets angry really easily? A lot of hotheads walking around that just get ticked off on the seemingly minor details of life. Or maybe you're somebody who can be really patient with people or other people around you. What is your temperament? Have you ever taken the time to look at that? I can remember, having friends back in the days when I was in college. I remember having friends in my fraternity who would just struggle with the same thing every time, and they could never figure out why they kept hitting the same wall, even though it was a different employer that they were talking about every time, or perhaps a different girlfriend or a different boyfriend or whatever the case might have been. But the point is, they kept struggling with the same issue over and over. Well, I submit to you that those folks at that time in their life had invested zero energy in getting to know themselves. And so they were much more inclined to make those same mistakes over and over and over again. And so this is about understanding your temperament in relation to your values and your interests. Next is looking at how do you use time. Some of us are able to go through life seemingly with little sleep. Others need the full 8 hours. Obviously, doctors will tell you everywhere that you really should be trying to get 8 hours of sleep a night. You know yourself, your own body, what you need. I would encourage you to make sure that you're getting adequate sleep, because the lack of sleep leads to a whole lot of other problems, both health problems and social problems, as you become much more irritable when you lack sleep, and your ability to think at a deep level, as we've discussed earlier, is diminished greatly. So do what you need to do. Figure out what you need to do and work out your schedule. Figure out a way to make that schedule as consistent as possible. Every day ought to be very similar. So if you're somebody who needs to be in bed, say at 10 o'clock at night, then be in bed at 10 o'clock at night, or at least very close to it, 10:30, whatever. But the whole idea is that you are very consistent, so that when you get up in the morning, you're feeling refreshed, as opposed to dreading the day because you're so exhausted and you're trying to stagger over to get a cup of coffee, or inject yourself with caffeine with a Coke or a Diet Coke or whatever your choice is. Whether you take your caffeine hot or cold, it doesn't matter. The point of the matter is this: if you take care of your body and you get enough sleep, among other things, and making sure you're eating the right things and not eating the wrong things, and things that are sugary or things that are just going to really kind of wreck your metabolism over a period of time, you're going to feel better. And when you feel better, you think better, and you're much more relaxed, as we talked about before. Next, think about this. Have you ever spent any time thinking about what your life goals are? What is your mission in life? Why are you here? What is it you want to do with your life? The world of work can help answer that question greatly. There's nothing worse than having a job that you absolutely hate, or you just don't feel is a good match for you at a very deep level. That's terrible. I've known people who, for example, went all the way through college and got even master's degrees to get into a particular field, and they get into the field and they find out they absolutely hate it. And why do they hate it? They don't really know, because they've never spent time thinking about it. And so when you ask them, well, how did you decide to do this in the first place? Well, my dad used to do this, or my mom used to do this, or my uncle used to do this, or I had an opportunity to get involved with a family business, and so it seemed like a natural thing to do. All of which is fine. The problem is they got in there and they said, you know what? This is just about the nastiest thing I've ever had to do. All of us know, you get to know yourself and understand it. For example, for me, anybody who knows me knows that I am not an accountant. I don't play one on TV. I've stayed at the Holiday Inn Express, and I'm still not an accountant. And that's okay. I don't need to be. I don't want to be. But I'll tell you what, if you put me in a situation where that's what I had to do every day, I might be able to do it and probably do a decent job. The point of the matter is, though, it would be miserable. Why? Because I'm the kind of person who really needs to talk to others, who needs to be involved in helping others to achieve their goals. And so isolating me in some cubicle somewhere is not a good idea, at least not over the long haul. So what is your life mission? What is it you want to do? When you leave this world, what mark do you want to leave behind? For many of us, it's our kids. For many of us, we want to see our kids be successful, get married, have other kids, and keep on going down the line. That is awesome. But here's the thing. What else do you want to do? Because you can't live your life through your kids, right? I can't live mine through mine. But the point of the matter is, what I can do is figure out is what can I do that's going to impact their lives or help create a situation where they can be successful. And that's all about part of my mission. My personal mission in life is very simple. My mission in life is to help everyone around me advance in their own life, help them become better at whatever they do. Better employees, better human beings, better spouses, better husbands, wives, and whatever, better friends. Whatever there needs to be, I want to help people achieve that next goal. And that's the whole point of starting Tier 1 coaching and training, is to really offer that service and that support to everybody who might want it. And we're here to do it. So the last thing that I want to tell you about, I want to encourage you with, that is getting to know your strengths. It's really, really easy to get up in the morning and look in the mirror and think of all the bad things you did, or all the things you didn't do, or the things that you're not so good at. I just told you I'm not so good at math and things like that, or being an accountant, for example. That would be very difficult for me. That's not a strength. But I do have, my strength is I can gather information and help people understand how they can apply that information in their life in such a way through coaching. And previously in my career path as a therapist, I would help people get through very, very difficult situations simply because I understood things that could very much apply to them. and help them. So that's a strength for me. What are your strengths? What kinds of things are you good at? What kinds of things happen just like breathing for you? It's not something you actually have to think about. What are those kinds of things? What are the strengths? And build those strengths, build on them. Just because they're a strength doesn't mean you can't develop them even further. Because guess what? As you do develop them further, the beauty is those areas that aren't strengths, that are more weaknesses or just limitations, become stronger themselves. That's how it works. So look at those areas of strengths, and what can you do? And when you're developing this whole plan for what you want to do in your life, from a career perspective, from a relationship perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a social perspective, whatever it is you want to do, make sure that you've taken the time to think it through and to spend some time meditating on those things and building that strengths into your life. Because as you do, you're going to feel better, as we've talked about already. And finally, here's a tool, a really cool tool I want to share with you. And this is really good, and this is worth the price of admission for this presentation alone. And the tool is the 5 whys. Now, okay, some of you may have heard of this before. If you haven't, I would encourage you to write this down. It's all about the 5 whys. So here's the thing. So let's say that you have the decision that you want to go into a business venture, that you want to start your own business, whatever it might be. Or maybe you're thinking about a career change. You want to instead of working for the company you work for now, you want to work for another company. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever major decision you have, spending some time thinking about, ask yourself the question, why? Why do I want to do this? And then answer it. And once you've answered it, ask yourself again, why? Why do I want to do this? Until you have done that 5 times. Now here's the beauty of the 5 whys. By the time you get to the 5th why, you have distilled what is really, really important to you down to its most basic essence. And as you've done that, you're now able to apply that and develop that in your life. And anytime anybody were to ask you, why did you do this? You have a really good answer because you've thought it out. What most of us do is we'll make a decision and we kind of impulsively go in that direction and then never ask the question, why do I really want to do this? And so when the tough times come, as they always do, and we have those struggles in our life at different inopportune times in our lifestyle, when that happens, we struggle and we waver in our commitment, right? But if you spend time up front asking yourself, why do I want to do this? Not in an accusing way, not in the way that you're beating yourself up over anything, but just literally, why do I want to do this? I want to go into business. Why? Because I want to help other people. Why? Because people struggle in this one particular area. Why? Because they make bad choices, because nobody's ever taught them strategies and how they might make better choices and things that really important based on their personal values and their strengths. Why? Because they've never had this opportunity. Maybe it's a lack of education. Maybe it's a lack of opportunity. Maybe it's a world of other changes. Why? Because this is who I am. And at the deepest level, I can depend on that because I know that's not going to change. Now, there's lots of instruments out there that I can point you to. Here at Tier 1, we use a bunch of things. I'm certainly certified to talk to people about the Myers-Briggs so we can get to look at people's personality at a pretty deep level. That's a good thing. That helps. It helps. I have another instrument that I use, an assessment called the Core Values Inventory, which I highly recommend. It's an awesome tool that allows you to get to know your basic core values and to learn how to apply those in whatever field you choose to get into and whatever kind of a relationship you choose to get into. You'll find that there's strengths here that are just part of who you are. What I really like about that particular instrument is that it has a high, it's like a 94% test-retest reliability, which is unheard of. By contrast to MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, it has a test-retest of about 72%, which means this. If you take the test today, you get a result. You take it again a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your result could be very different under the MBTI. But what they've found statistically, and what I've found through my own personal experience and the experience of people that I've worked with in the past, when you take the CVI, you get your values are identified And as you take it again, at some point in the future, it's very much the same, which tells you what? That's who you are. It's not you reacting to society in some way, some primitive way or otherwise. It's all about who you really, really are at the deepest level of your soul. So that's really cool. So here's the thing. Spend some time. Spend some time getting to know yourself. I'm telling you, it sounds silly, and it sounds like, well, of course I know myself. I'm here to tell you that most of us, the vast majority of the people you see every day, perhaps even you yourself, have not spent any time doing this. I continue to learn every day about myself because there's things that over time get revealed, but only revealed to me because I've spent the time, or I am currently spending the time to try to get to know myself and to try to accept myself at a much deeper level, which leads to all those things we talked about before, all those benefits: happiness, the less inner conflict, better decision-making, increased self-control, resistance to social pressure, and being much, much, much more understanding of others around me. Well, hey, this has been great. I hope this has been helpful for you. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you here tonight. And here we are. This is Roy Shenneman, Dr. Roy Shenneman with Tier 1 Coaching and Training. If I can be of service to you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And I'd love for you to leave me a comment on your thoughts, good, bad, and different. I'm just here to learn from you and to see what I can do at Tier 1 Coaching that's going to be of benefit to you as you reach for the stars in your future. Beyond that, I want to say have a good evening and thank you so much. And oh, by the way, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl?